Greetings, fearless listeners, and welcome to another hair-raising Sunday special on Horror Stories. Brace yourself for one of the most chilling stories you'll ever hear. A terrifying tale so haunting that we can't reveal the real name of the person involved. What you're about to experience is based on true events, and I guarantee by the end of the story you'll have goosebumps crawling up your spine. The horror that unfolded in this mysterious, eerie place is beyond imagination. Are you ready to dive into the darkness? Today's story is going to be about a lady who tells her story from when she was 12 years old. She is now a well-known psychic. A psychic is someone who can act as a medium, capable of reading people and communicating with spirits, someone who can sense various energies and see many things. Some psychics can even enter a trance state where they can imagine or sense things that are far away, like if you tell them something about your house, they could enter a state and their astral body, as we call it, can perceive things like a tree or something specific at that location. This ability is often considered a gift, sometimes passed down through generations. So, this is her story, how she became who she is now, the mistakes she made in life, and her journey. When she was 12 years old, she developed an interest in black magic. We don't know exactly how she came across it, but she started reading books related to it. She had no idea what black magic really was. But, as it often happens, curiosity about the unknown took over, and she wanted to learn more. This was not very long ago, at a time when online sites were becoming a trend, and things were easily available. She came from a wealthy family. Her parents were rich and often busy, so she had a lot of privacy and freedom. Unlike middle-class families where privacy is limited, she had her own space, her own room, and access to a lot of things. Her parents were busy, and they didn't pay much attention. All these factors contributed to her interest in black magic. Being the only child with no siblings, she became curious about black magic and started collecting books. One day, a book arrived at her house when her mother was home. She quickly grabbed the parcel and ran to her room. Her mother became suspicious and waited for her to leave for school so she could check her room. Her mother managed to get a copy of her room key, and while her daughter was at school, she opened the room and found several black magic books, including one about death rituals. Imagine what a mother, with an only 12-year-old daughter, must have felt finding such things in her child's room. Not only books, but there were also jars of herbs, each one marked rosemary, black salt, and so on. There was even a snake's skin and a vial of crow's blood. Her mother was shocked. She had no idea her daughter was involved in such things. In panic, her parents decided to send her to a boarding school, cutting off her access to money and limiting her freedom. However, her interest in the occult didn't disappear. In boarding school, she continued reading books about vampires and witches, whatever she could find in the library. Even though her parents tried, they couldn't stop her curiosity about the dark arts. She had started practicing black magic at the age of 10, just a child in the 4th or 5th grade, with no real understanding of what she was doing. When she reached college age, she got into a relationship for the first time. That first love, that excitement. It's a thrilling phase in anyone's life, and for her, who had never had close friends or relationships, it was overwhelming. Despite being sent away, her core nature hadn't changed. She was still drawn to dark topics. This relationship became a very intense attachment for her, partly because of her lonely upbringing and the emotional trauma she experienced from her obsession with black magic. At some point, she left her interest in black magic behind, but the emotional scars remained. She became obsessed with her boyfriend, seeing in him everything she had missed growing up. When someone suddenly fills that emotional void, it can become a deep attachment, and that's what happened to her. If a person doesn't even look at anyone else and yet starts obsessing over someone, they slowly become jealous, and that jealousy turns into obsession. This happened with that boy, so much so that she changed her classes in college just to be in the same ones as him, even though their subjects were different. She altered her subjects just to match his and covered the syllabus accordingly. Now, what happened was that whenever any girl tried to become friends with that boy, she would become extremely jealous. She started behaving like a psycho, or whatever you might want to call it. She even started practicing black magic. As I mentioned earlier, she had gone outside the college and bought some black magic books from there. She started collecting things mentioned in the books according to the rituals, things like if you want to achieve this, do that, and so on. She confessed that she initially started with small love spells to keep the boy attracted to her. She would do things like placing objects under the moonlight and performing other rituals. I am sharing this because all this information is readily available on the internet now, so don't think I'm guiding anyone. Earlier, these things were only available in books, which she bought and practiced. Now comes the part about black magic. She felt that what she was doing was working, and 2 years ago she had practiced something similar. She suggested to her boyfriend, who was also a hostile mate, that they should get a place outside and move in together. Typically, it's the boy who takes the first step towards living together, but she proposed it herself. The boy, being happy with the idea, agreed. So they moved in together, but her sole purpose was to collect intimate things from him like hair, nails, and even blood. These were personal things that a person you love would trust you with. Imagine your partner, who has the most access to you, collecting such things. Now, she was in her early 30s, and when they moved in, she started collecting intimate items from him, things related to DNA like saliva, or even things like a used cup of tea. She began these practices, and when she would visit the boys' dorm, everything would be fine. But whenever he visited her dorm, fights would break out after 2 or 3 days. At that time, she hadn't started the black magic practices yet. The jealousy began later after these frequent fights. Once she sensed that there was an energy in her dorm preventing him from getting close, she started performing binding spells and protection rituals. They even used salt baths and herbs in a jacuzzi, which is common outside. There was a friend of her boyfriend's who had known him even before they started dating. She cast black magic on this friend as well. She invited her over, fed her something with black magic in it, and after that, this friend started acting weird, telling her boyfriend, "Don't contact me, don't come after me." She repeated this process with 7 or 8 girls, targeting anyone who tried to get close to her boyfriend. She was so obsessed that she couldn't bear to see him talking to any other girl, even casually exchanging notes. Eventually, a new student joined their college, someone more attractive and with better grades. This new girl caused a lot of jealousy. The obsessed girl decided to go to extreme lengths and vowed to drive the new girl away. She collected personal items from her and performed black magic, to the point where the new girl attempted suicide twice during exams. The new girl eventually left the college due to depression, and the boyfriend started to realize that something was wrong. He noticed that any girl who came into his life, even casually, would end up in some kind of trouble. He started to suspect that his girlfriend was behind all this. Imagine a classmate attempts suicide, and you notice that every time someone gets close to you, things go wrong. This pattern made him question what was really happening. So all these things deeply affected her boyfriend. He started cutting off from her slowly, first by stopping having meals together. They used to always eat together, especially on weekends when they stayed in the same house. Even though they lived separately during the weekdays, their routine was well established. But he stopped coming over. He started making excuses, saying he had to attend a game or go watch a concert with friends. He always mentioned being with male friends and never once talked about any female friends. That made her suspicious. It seemed unlikely that there would never be any girls in the group. For a month or so, it went on like this. 10 days passed where her boyfriend didn't spend much time with her. Obviously, when someone you're used to being with 24/7 isn't spending time with you, skipping meals, you'd naturally get angry. She asked him, "Where are you?" He made the usual excuse, saying he was out at a game. He would even send her pictures to convince her. One day, she went to the place where they used to live together. She told him to come there, but he said, "I can't come. I'm busy with my friends." She got fed up and went to his hostel where he said he was. She had access to his place, so she went and looked through the window and saw him comfortably playing video games. Her mind was blown. She couldn't tolerate his lies any longer. Standing right there, she called him, asking, "Where are you?" He told her a made-up story about being at a game, but she knew he was lying and was just with his friends. She couldn't handle the lies anymore. Laughing to herself, she thought, I've done so much for this guy, gone to crazy lengths, and now he's doing this to me. Then she decided to take things into her own hands. She was deeply into black magic and knew how to open portals to other worlds, which should not be meddled with without proper knowledge. She had reached a level of maturity where she understood the consequences of what she was doing. Her actions were having positive results in some areas but opening doors in others too. Realizing the risk she had taken for him, she decided to perform the biggest and darkest ritual of her life. She thought of offering a sacrifice. For this ritual, she would summon a soul. She gathered the blood of 3 different animals, mixed it with rice, and used it to draw a circle with a star in the middle. She then set up candles and herbs, preparing every element herself. Each item was crafted with a mantra. She performed the ritual at the place where they lived together, knowing he wouldn't disturb her as he wasn't coming home. She summoned a soul and offered it a deal, telling it to torment her boyfriend. The soul agreed. Within the next few days, her boyfriend started experiencing strange occurrences. One day at college, her boyfriend, sitting in their usual spot, saw her and was visibly shocked. He even called her, asking, "Where are you?" She replied, "I'm at home, cleaning the place," but he was convinced he saw her standing outside his dorm. This unsettled him even more. Her boyfriend became more paranoid, telling her that he saw her outside his dorm even though she wasn't there. He eventually broke down and told her he had seen her jump from a building, only to find nothing when he rushed there. Small, terrifying incidents like this continued happening to him. After several weeks of this torment, she felt pity for him. Although she had been crazy in love with him, she realized it had gone too far. She decided to end the ritual and looked through various books to find a way to stop it. But none of the books had the answers she was looking for. After weeks of searching, she finally started talking directly to the soul. The soul told her it wanted her boyfriend. She refused, saying that it couldn't have him. In a fit of ego, she insisted that she was the master of black magic and could handle anything. The soul responded that it would take her boyfriend regardless. The boyfriend, in the meantime, was mentally exhausted. He had experienced so many terrifying events that he was breaking down. She confidently told the soul it could have anything it wanted from her, but not her boyfriend. But both she and the soul wanted the same thing, the boy. In the end, she found one last book that she hoped would provide a solution, but as she frantically flipped through the pages, she still couldn't find what she was looking for. In a moment of frustration, she threw the book, scattering the ritual objects she had used to bind the soul. She realized too late that by doing so, she had undone the only thing keeping the soul under control. Now, the soul was free to claim what it wanted. If it needs to be reversed, it's usually written somewhere how to do it. But if you've already destructed everything, you've set the soul free, and now it has free will. That happened, and now it's in a state where it neither goes away nor tries to contact anymore because the circle isn't intact, and it can't make contact. The next morning, when she goes to brush her teeth and spits, she looks up and notices that her reflection isn't moving. You know how sometimes when we move a certain way, we catch things from the corner of our eyes? That's what she notices, that her reflection hasn't moved. Then she checks again, observing herself carefully. She isn't terrified outwardly, but deep down, she is scared. I'll be honest, I sometimes do the same while brushing, like many people, out of habit. But one thing that I'll never forget is how scary it is to look in the mirror at night, especially because the mind plays tricks on you. I've heard it said that your bed shouldn't face the mirror. They say you might keep staring at yourself and create illusions. Try it. Just stare into a mirror for 10 minutes, though even 10 minutes might be too much. Soon, you'll start to feel negative energy and fear. It's terrifying to stare deeply into your own eyes for too long. Anyway, she was brushing her teeth, and after realizing something was wrong, she raised her hand to check her reflection. But in the reflection, her hand didn't move. It stayed frozen in the same position. She understood that the spirit was now trying to contact her through the mirror, on its own terms because she had freed it. She asks the spirit, "Tell me what you need, and I'll do it. Just tell me what I can do for you." But the spirit asks for something wrong, and she says, "You've been doing wrong all along with so many people, haven't you?" The spirit knew that she wasn't using any protection, had no guide, and was just learning from books. After that, as she starts to say something else, the mirror shatters. You had summoned a soul to do your bidding and then set it free on its own terms. Now, the spirit has asked for a boyfriend. Imagine, if a mirror can be shattered by a spirit, it means that the energy is incredibly powerful. She explains all of this to her boyfriend, confessing that she knows how to perform these things, which is known as Wicca. She didn't mention black magic directly, but he understood. The boyfriend, enraged, says, "I suspected you from the beginning, from when the last girl almost committed suicide. I was foolish to come back to you a second time. I knew you were behind all the bad things happening to me, but I trusted you blindly." Imagine the betrayal. How would a normal person feel if they realized the person they trusted most had been behind all their problems all along? And not just any problem, supernatural ones. This girl had broken friendships, caused a girl to almost commit suicide, and much more. The boyfriend, furious, leaves. As he walks away, the spirit follows him, and she can see it smirking back at her, as if to say, "Look, I'm taking him with me." At this point, they should have stayed together to find a solution, but emotions ran high, and they separated when they needed each other the most. The girl had confessed her mistakes, but the guy couldn't handle the breach of his privacy and personal space. You can't intrude on someone's private space so much that it suffocates them. So, understandably, he left. The girl tries multiple times to make contact with him, but he's gone. She tries to visit the dorms to find him, but he's no longer there. How can someone return to a normal life after realizing all the dark forces that had been at play around them? And on top of that, now he had a negative entity attached to him. She realizes that the spirit had been traveling with him all along, and now they were out of control. She started looking for solutions, visiting all sorts of people, tarot readers, crystal healers, and anyone who practiced these kinds of things, but no one could help her. Most of them were frauds or didn't know what they were doing. One night, after a week of running around and reading books for answers, she locked herself in her room for 3 days, going through all her magic books to try and find a solution. Her eyes became so swollen from lack of sleep that she could barely recognize her reflection. She started questioning what she had done to her life. Her life had been going well until she had turned everything upside down because of her own actions. Finally, she decided to try to recreate the same diagram and circle she had used originally, thinking it might help her regain control over the situation. After all, if she had summoned a spirit once, she could do it again, right? But this time, everything was out of control. The strings that connected her to the spirit were broken, like cutting the strings of a puppet. Now the puppet was dancing on its own, out of anyone's control. In the end, neither the boyfriend nor the girl understood what was happening anymore. They were both lost, and while the girl admitted her mistakes, she didn't fully realize the gravity of what she had done. As a young college student, how could she have known the full consequences of playing with such forces? Now, her boyfriend had a negative energy attached to him, and no one was able to help. She tried everything, visiting people who claimed to practice spiritual work, reading books, but nothing worked. Every time they tried something, it seemed to backfire. And the spirit? It was no longer under their control. The girl's guilt started to consume her, but it was too late. Everything had spiraled out of control. It clicked for her that these books are coming from somewhere, and what if I can find the source there? Maybe I'll get help from the person who has so many books on witchcraft, who also has the ingredients. They must know something, right? Who is bringing such pure ingredients from the jungle traveling so far? So that place was about 350 kilometers away. So she traveled to that place, and when she got there, she saw a shabby bookstore. It looked like something straight out of old times, not well maintained at all, really shabby from the outside. But as soon as she entered, There were reflectors, crystals, and beautiful lighting reflecting everywhere, and it was quite stunning. When she went inside, the books were well maintained, and all of them were on subjects like witches, dark magic, natural magic, healing, and how to connect with nature. She remembered the names of some of the books because later in life those books helped her. But at that moment, she saw everything laid out there. Then she noticed a woman who was working, going about her business. The condition of the place, it was like this woman had gone mad. She had an obsession with a man for whom she had done so many things, but he was gone, due to his own mistakes and foolishness. She never had any attachment to her mother or father, having been in boarding school, receiving no love or support. She had always been immersed in books, and that's where her attachment formed. This man. By this time, she had gone mad. Her condition was such that she didn't care about her appearance. First, her aura was already negative because she was spreading so much negativity around, and now her own energy had also drained. Even though she was in high spirits, albeit through evil, now her spirit was low too. She was completely drained of energy, like how you feel when your heart breaks. She was in that state. Then, the woman she saw was absolutely beautiful, the one at the bookstore, so pretty. But when she looked closer, it seemed like the woman was around 70 or 80 years old, with lots of wrinkles, yet still very positive and very beautiful. The whole place gave off such positive energy that it made her feel good despite the long train and bus journey she had taken to get there. She could feel a shift in energy, being someone who practiced and understood energy. There was a noticeable shift due to one person's presence. She saw the woman arranging books on a small stool, who then looked at her, smiled, and went back to arranging the books. That smile made her feel like she was treated like a customer. So she said, "I know you can help me." And with that, her mind flashed back to how she hadn't been able to contact that man for a week. She had gone to his house on the last day, where he had moved back with his parents after leaving his previous life. There, she saw him again after a week, and he looked completely drained. Dark circles had deepened around his eyes, and his condition had deteriorated significantly within that 1 week. He pleaded with her, "Please undo whatever you've done to me. I haven't eaten in a week. I can't eat or drink anything. I'm covered in wounds on my back." The entity had taken out all its rage and aggression on him, draining him of his energy. He was in a position of begging her for mercy, asking her to undo whatever she had done. He didn't even have answers for his parents, who had taken him to doctors. His reports showed nothing wrong, but his body was failing. The only thing left in her mind was that conversation, the reason she had read those books and traveled so far. The woman at the bookstore later became her guru, but she had already passed away by the time all of this happened. That woman was the one who later guided her onto the right path. While this was happening, the older woman got down from her stool, held her hand, and asked, "Do you know the spirit?" She replied, "I'll tell you everything, but I made a big mistake. I don't know the spirit." The woman asked, "Are you sure you didn't feel any familiarity with it?" She said no, but how did the woman know it was a spirit? The older woman replied, "The shop you're standing in, normal people rarely come here. Only those with special energy do." Then she took her hand, and for a couple of minutes, it seemed like she went into some sort of trance. Her eyes fluttered, and she began murmuring something in a language she didn't understand, perhaps an ancient mantra. Then she came back and said, "Tell me everything you did." She explained that she had made several mistakes, the biggest being that she had disturbed the altar. The entity was connected to that altar, and she hadn't bound it to any doll or object but had let it loose on a person without knowing what she was doing. The woman told her that the entity wouldn't let him sleep or eat and was slowly draining his life. Every day that passed, it was aging him tenfold. It was feeding off his life energy. Then she asked again, "Are you sure you don't feel any similarity with the spirit?" She said no, this was the first time she had ever dealt with an entity. The woman became confused and frustrated, circling the room, as if looking for something, but nothing was physically moving. She was just turning around rapidly, searching, even though her 70 to 80-year-old body shouldn't have been able to move that fast. Eventually, she begged the woman to come to her house, and the woman agreed but said, "I'll come in 2 days." The 2 days passed, and the woman arrived. She immediately sensed the heavy negative energy in the house, saying it wasn't just any spirit, but something human tormenting him. She needed to know why the spirit had become so obsessed with him. She wanted to understand the reason behind the entity's anger because everything happens for a reason. She told her to try communicating with the spirit to find out its history. Despite her low energy and shattered state, she tried. She saw so many spirits, some looking so terrifying, especially the old ones that hadn't moved on. They manifest themselves in scary ways. They manifest themselves in a very terrifying way, and when I enter that trance, it's something that has never happened to me before. I knew spirits exist and all that, but so much negative energy was being attracted to me, and the negative energy kept coming. You could see some kind of support system lifting that friend, but something was bothering them, something wrong was happening to them. Every time she goes into a trance, she tries, but the same thing repeats every half hour, breaking her trance. This went on for hours, like 6 to 8 hours straight, and sitting in one position for so long is very difficult. That old woman sat with her, saying, "Keep going, it's okay. I'm here. Whatever happens, you'll get through it, just try to connect with that entity." Then once, she sees it. She sees a black shadowy figure, very hazy, and all she can hear is loud laughter. And the only thing she visualizes is her boyfriend lying on the bed, and that entity is standing beside him, moving farther and farther away. She tries to communicate, begging, "Please talk to me, at least tell me what I can do, if you want my body or something." But it never responds. It says something that she can't understand, in such a high-pitched voice that it's hard to make out. The voice sounded like it was coming from a television, but high-pitched and unclear. Imagine being in a trance, focusing on one thing, praying for it, but the entity keeps taking it away, saying something you can't understand. You'd be in such a difficult state. The old lady then says, "Let me try," but she had already told her earlier, "You have to do this yourself. This is your fight, not mine. You have to deal with this however you can." But now, she had no other choice but to help. She tries to communicate with the entity, but after 3 hours, she comes back from the trance. People don't usually stay in a full trance for that long, maybe half, but not a full one. When she returns, she tells her, "That entity is linked to your past life. You did something in your past life, and now that entity is after you. It's not even a human soul anymore, if it ever was. Too much time has passed for it to still have any humanity left. It's now just a dark energy, so dark that anything near it will be consumed. And you have given it your boyfriend. It will consume him, and you've already cried endlessly for help." So after this, she tries to talk to the entity again. But after everything she did, all the power she has, she could only learn this much. She later tries again to connect, and the entity tells her, "If you can free him, then do it. I won't leave. I'll take him with me. People will remember me for centuries for what I've done. The world will know what I've done, and no one will forget me." Even though this was an inhuman entity, it was so strong, so dark. It knew her from a past life. Later on, she learns that she had once been a black magic practitioner in her past life, dealing with these kinds of entities. She had even exorcised spirits from people back then. She had dealt with this entity in that past life, saving someone it had targeted, and it held a grudge since then. These entities remember across lifetimes. They know when someone comes back, even if it's in a new body. In this life, it knew that her weakness was her love, so it targeted her through that. Later, when they realize this, they go to a priest for help, but they can't tell the whole truth because the church doesn't believe in such things. They decide to visit the church, but the boy's mother is shocked, asking, "What are you doing here?" They explain that nothing else is working, not medicine, not tests, so they wanted to try prayer as a last option. That night, they take his body away. Stealing from the hospital, she steals, and it's good. And I won't tell the whole story, but this happened, and they said that these cases happen a lot in many places where teenagers' bodies disappear like this. That's why I'm not revealing the names of the places, because a lot of things will come out online and all the names will be revealed, so we do not want that. Yes, that old woman runs away with the body. She takes it to the father, priest, and the father tries all night to do something, to extract something, but nothing happens. They keep trying until the morning, and by the time they realize it, it's already 2 a.m. Okay, so it's 2 a.m. and they are still trying. Around 3:30 a.m. or so, the body starts to react, and it looks fully at its boyfriend with empty eyes. One day passes, morning comes, it's 7 a.m., but nothing comes out. Even though the body is still on life support and oxygen, the old woman suspects something is wrong because the father isn't able to do anything either. She wonders, what should I do? How will this be resolved? She tells the other person to calm down. I'll handle this. I'll take care of it. There is a church nearby, built in a very backward area, which has been cleaned up a bit. Still, people say the church's beliefs are backward, but when anyone believes there's an entity, they go to that church. The belief is so strong. Behind the church, there is an orchard with fruit trees. She says, we have to tie the entity to that tree. While performing the ritual, you'll have to do it around that tree. The person wonders how they will do this around the tree, but the woman says, you just have to tie it. Nobody will notice. They started the ritual while the old woman was staying in the church. The next night comes, the woman is in the church, and the father is performing the exorcism. Around 3:30 a.m., the body starts to react again, twisting its shoulders and neck. The boy looks back, his eyes turn white, and he stretches his neck completely backward. The boy looks around and only sees the father standing there. His girlfriend isn't there. He looks again, and through his eyes, the entity, the demon, is watching them. He can't feel the energy properly because so much chanting and everything is going on, and the entity's energy is also weakening. At that moment, the boy looks back again, and the girlfriend is still in a trance, performing her ritual, wandering in her own world. They say that if she had been just 10 minutes late, things could have gone terribly wrong. She saw the spirit coming at them very fast from the back, running toward them. The boy had calmed down completely by then, as if a huge burden had been lifted from him. His heavy breathing became relaxed. At that moment, she saw the spirit approaching quickly, but she and the old woman had created protective symbols on the ground with holy herbs and sticks, which were invisible but protected them. This was done in case the entity attacked them before the ritual was complete. After binding the entity to the tree, the woman cannot return to the church because she entered with the body. She hears screaming sounds, understands that something happened, and realizes the boy is calm now. She completes the ritual, ties the entity to the tree, and they bound it in such a way that the tree cannot be cut down, burned, or used for wood. The land is bound with the entity, and the tree will remain there dried up. Afterward, they cleaned everything, including the altar, and had the old woman perform a cleansing ritual. The boy thanks her, acknowledging that she saved his life, but says he can't be with her because he is afraid of the things she has done. He says he can't trust her again, even though she saved his life. She experiences heartbreak. She then goes with the old woman, asking how she became so powerful and maintained such clean and white energy. The old woman reveals her journey, explaining that she was born into a lineage of witches, and her ancestors were all witches. She was the only one in her lineage not born a witch because she practiced black magic. This karma cycle had been going on for many lifetimes, which is how she became psychic. Now, she helps people deal with entities, communicating with spirits, and removing negative energies. Most of the time, the energies are from loved ones, and people are unable to decode or understand their emotions or anger. The old woman had dealt with 3 major entities. 1 she summoned herself, and 2 that were ancient. If such entities catch hold of you, they will not let go. Some of these entities might still exist today, similar to the demons we hear about in mythology. Although I could be very wrong, I feel that these are the same entities we once referred to as demons, negative energy. Now, the old woman is psychic and helps others by removing or communicating with such energies. They say that once the entity is bound, it will never return again. The land and the tree are now bound to the entity, and after completing the ritual, the boy was taken home. Before we wrap up, I kindly ask for your support. Subscribe to Horror Stories and hit the bell icon to be the first to catch our latest updates. Stay connected, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.